Forever Monday, written by Mike Grimes, copyright 2010, Part 6, Chapter 23. The following morning the alarm went off at 9 a.m., but Allison was already awake. She slapped the off button before the second beep. Her room fell silent again, except for the faint rustling of covers beside her, where a huge cat was waking up. He mewed softly and made his way to her pillow to greet her. She petted him for a minute or two, looking all around, taking things in. She stretched, then got out of bed, pulling a satin wedgie from her behind. The image she saw in a full-length mirror there was vaguely familiar, but not really. A woman with dark hair stared at her, wearing a blue satin negligee. Allison reached out and touched the mirror. Her memory was instantly bombarded with flashes and image after image. A man with brown hair, smiling. She heard herself whisper his name as his scent filled her brain. Michael. She looked behind her, at the bed. She closed her eyes and saw him. Michael, making love to her, laughing, moaning, making her laugh and moan. It was exactly like the dream she'd had last night. No, not like the dream, she thought. Better, more real, like it really happened. Tomorrow? A tiny voice inside her head said softly. Tomorrow, Allison mumbled out loud. At the sound of his name, the cat on her bed meowed and suddenly sat up, alert. Come here, boy. Allison sat on the edge of her fluffy bed, and tomorrow went to her, quietly mashing covers beneath his huge paws. He touched her lips with his cold, wet nose. Good boy, she praised him. Allison cradled her cat in her arms and made her way to the living room where he leaped down onto the coffee table near a short stack of books. She went to the stereo and was about to put a CD in and listen to it when she suddenly remembered something. Her journal. The note to herself. She ran to the kitchen and snatched up the piece of paper on the counter there. She read it, walking carefully into the dining room where there was more natural light. She read every word. According to the note in her own handwriting, there had indeed been a man named Michael, and she and he were apparently very much in love. Allison smiled at that thought. The images in her mind were not fake or a dream after all. They had really happened. Memories. My memories. I had remembered something. The park. She had to get there. She rushed to her bedroom, grabbed some clothes. She threw them on right over her lingerie. Then she had to pee. Shit, she hissed, disappointed that something was slowing her down. Once she sat down and started going, it felt like years before she finished. Come on, she chided her own body. She rinsed her hands briefly and caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. She was a haphazard mess, but she did not have time to care. She dried her hands on the butt of her jeans and then strode back to the living room. She grabbed her keys, hip pack, and paused. The journal, the desk, the drawer in the desk. Allison yanked her journal off the top of the desk. She looked inside it curiously. There was a drawing of a little boy on one page and one of a young man on another. She didn't think the young man was Michael. Who is he, then? She turned the pages and saw the same handwriting as in the note she had read. Her handwriting. My name is Allison Meester, she read aloud. That much I know. I woke up this morning and didn't recognize the face in the mirror. I have a scar on the side of my forehead, but I have no idea how it got there. There's a cat here. I can't recall his name. I took my pill and went for a jog. A strange man was at the park. He had a really pretty dog. I saw him again through my bedroom window. He seems friendly. He must have an office or an apartment across the street from my unit. I have to go to a doctor's appointment today at 4. I hope it goes well. Maybe he has some explanations for me. Allison flipped through several more pages, but there was nothing more written. Only some doodles and more sketches. The remainder of the pages were completely blank. Shit. She bit her fingernails as she pondered the drawer in the desk. She kneeled and pulled on the bottom one. It glided open and she peered inside. It was empty. The wood was light in color. There was nothing suspicious about it. Nothing at all. Allison felt puzzled. She reached into the drawer, felt the bottom and sides and back. They were all pretty solid and sturdy. There were no trap doors or anything of the sort. She paused and stared at the journal in her hand. She took hold of the pen on the desk and drew a huge star on the cover. She tossed it into the drawer and reached for the handle in the front. She drew a breath and then shoved the drawer closed. Allison listened but heard nothing. After a moment, she pulled the drawer open again, slowly, steadily. The journal was still inside. She closed her eyes and sighed, shaking her head. She closed the drawer, realizing how insane she must look. Allison stood and made her way to the door to leave. She was about to turn the knob, but was distracted by a thought. She glared at the desk, suspicion growing inside her. Fuck it, she thought. She stepped purposely up to the desk and yanked the bottom drawer open. The journal was gone. Fuck, she yelled as she slammed the drawer shut. She left the apartment, headed for the elevator so she could leave the building. She no longer felt safe. Whatever was going on there, it involved something she was not sure she wanted to confront alone. She would get Michael, bring him back with her. She would get an explanation from Dr. Stone also, see if he could shed any light on things. When she was a little ways down the hall, however, the door marked restricted access caught her eye. Without shame, she tried the handle. It was locked. Damn it! Allison stepped back a few feet. She looked back in the direction of her apartment. The room beyond the door in front of her seemed to be right next to her door, her dining room. But why? What's in there, she thought. Why is it restricted? She decided to get to the park. She took her car, nearly causing an accident on the way out of the parking garage. At the park, Allison ran to the pond area, near the water fountain that for some reason looked familiar to her. She swore that was where she had first seen him, Michael, but there was something else. A dog, she thought? Naya? Mariah? Maya! Allison looked all around. There were no dogs. She even called for Maya, but no dogs came running. She looked at her phone. It was 10:02. He should have been there, but he wasn't. Allison stood, hands on hips, and bit her lip. As she spun around, something caught her attention, underneath the bench. There was something white. She gave it a casual, low glance. Sure enough, there was what appeared to be an envelope stuck to the bottom of the vertical section of the bench. She sat down near the envelope, looking around inconspicuously to see if anyone was watching her. Satisfied she was alone, she snatched the prize from the back side of the bench. Allison studied the envelope for some time, still wondering where the hell Michael was. Her name was on the front of the envelope in her own handwriting. It was sealed. She took another look around. The park seemed to be completely devoid of life. No people, no dogs, no birds chirping in the trees, no geese in the pond. Not even a breeze was blowing. Allison wondered what could possibly be going on. Maybe she was just paranoid. But that's just it, she thought. I definitely feel like there's someone watching me. She got up and jogged to her car, waiting to open the envelope until she was inside. Allison tore the end off the envelope and poured out its contents. There was just one piece of paper, a letter. Her handwriting again. She began reading, silently this time. Allison, if you are reading this, you have not taken your pills and you came to the park to find the answers to your questions. I'm afraid you don't have them all, yet. Michael called you last night and told you that your pills are actually condensed carbon monoxide. They are illegal in most countries because they cause memory loss. This is not a joke. After Michael's call, you wrote this letter to yourself and brought it here, knowing you, would find it. You need to confront Dr. Stone and ask him just what the fuck is going on. Get into the restricted access room next door to you. You might find some answers in there. I'm sorry, please believe me. Allison. Oh God, Allison muttered to herself. They cause memory loss. She read and reread those words over and over again. Then she started the car and hit the gas. Chapter 24. Allison drove home with tears in her eyes. Michael had not shown up like she thought he would, and now Dr. Stone was not what she thought he was. Her world was quickly crumbling around her, and she still had no answers to her questions. She believed, yet did not want to believe, the note from the park. She was glad she had not taken the pills, but were they really as bad as the letter had pointed out? What the fuck is going on? When she arrived at her building and got to her floor, the door to the room beside her apartment was ajar. Her eyes flew open with surprise, but she remained calm, looking up and down the hall. The coast was clear, so she slipped into the restricted access room. She closed the door behind her without a sound. The room had a tile floor and was filled with all sorts of monitors, computers, and recording devices. There was a desk and several shelves. Only one of the 6 monitors was on. It showed an image of the main lobby of the building. Had someone seen me come home and taken off? She checked the desk and all its drawers. Inside one drawer there was a handgun. It was heavy and didn't feel safe, so she set it down on the desk, pointing it away from her. After pressing a button to turn on one of the monitors, the image she saw was shockingly familiar. It was her own living room. She recognized the layout and the items inside. The books she had read were on her coffee table, and there was her cat, Tomorrow, lounging on the sofa. A chill swept over her. She did not know if it was from fear or her growing rage. Allison turned on the other monitors. Soon the room came alive with images of her entire apartment. The kitchen, bedroom, even the bathroom and dining room. There was even one of her closet. Someone had indeed been spying on her. But who, and for how long? In her mind, she searched for memories. Michael had said that she and him had been talking for 11 months. Has someone really been watching me all this time? She suddenly spotted something that she was surprised she had not yet seen. In a cardboard box on the floor beside the desk, along the wall that faced her apartment, there was a haphazard pile of journal notebooks, exactly like the ones she had seen that morning. The one on top of the stack had a huge star drawn on the cover. She picked several of them up and opened their covers. They all either had handwritten entries in her handwriting or sketches of people or both. There were a bunch of portraits of a little boy and some young man named Jimmy. There were dozens and dozens of drawings of the man in her dreams, Michael. She studied his portrait. She whispered his name, holding on to the hope that he was still out there somewhere. She grabbed each notebook and flipped through it before adding it to a growing pile on the floor. Each and every one had almost the same exact contents in it. Entries by her and more drawings. Tears welled in her eyes as she rifled through them faster and faster, already knowing what was inside them. My name is Allison. I don't know who I am. I had a strange dream. Dr. Stone says memory loss. There was an accident. I saw a man at the park. He had a dog. Finally she exploded, screaming at the top of her lungs, tearing pages from the journals and showering the whole room with confetti. When she forced herself to calm down, she noticed a small chute jutting out from the wall above the cardboard box. She stared at it, knowing exactly where it led. She turned to a row of DVDs on a shelf. None of them were marked in any way. She grabbed one on the end, where the first in a series might be. She went to one of the video players and slid the disc in. One of the monitors, she suddenly saw herself writing in her journal at her dining room table, then slipping the journal into the bottom drawer of her desk. She put in another disc. She saw herself walking through the apartment, setting her cat on the coffee table. She was wearing the blue lingerie she had worn to bed last night. Oh God, he was just there. She watched the scene again, then rewound it a little and watched again. Where is the camera? The view was from behind her as she went down the hall to her living room, from the bedroom. But there's nothing there in that corner of my bedroom except... She grabbed another disc, played it. It appeared to be from the night before. She saw herself in the bathroom, wiping her makeup-smeared face. Then she ran to the door of her apartment. She yanked it open. After a few seconds, she closed it, leaning back against it. No one had come in, and no one was in the apartment with her. In the scene, however, Allison began to kiss thin air. She sat on the sofa and made love to no one but herself. She took a bath alone, ate pizza alone. She named her cat Tomorrow, alone. Allison covered her mouth as she choked down her emotions. She shook her head. No, it's impossible. He was there. He was right fucking there. She rewound the disc and restarted it. Then something caught her attention. It was small, in the corner of the room, while she had been grinding herself on the sofa like that night before. Out of her living room window, daylight. She could see, just barely, the window across the street. Michael was there, waving to her. What the hell? She decided to leave, but not before grabbing one of the discs, the gun, and one of the journals. Allison dashed into her apartment, went to the window. Michael was there, holding up a sign that said, "Skirt fits you perfectly. Love the shoes." Then he flipped the sign over. "You're beautiful." Allison felt the color wash out of her face, and her legs threatened to give way beneath her, but she fought it. Instead, she remembered seeing that view of herself from the bedroom, walking away. She stomped into her bedroom, straight up to the mirror. She grabbed the spyglass from the dresser and hurled it at the mirror. The reflective glass exploded into a million tiny pieces and shards. Sure enough, behind it there was a small camera of some sort, aimed right at her. She growled and tore it from its perch, smashing it on the edge of her dresser. When she had finally caught her breath, she whirled around and looked at her bedroom window skeptically. She reached through the broken mirror frame, picked up her spyglass and held it in her hands. Allison extended the spyglass. She felt her teeth gnash together as she swung it like a baseball bat at the window. The glass broke and shattered to the floor. Behind the window, however, there was nothing but a solid brick wall. Chapter 26. Dr. Stone's office door opened and Allison walked in. He was alone. Not even his receptionist was at her desk. She went in with her gun drawn, pointed it straight at him. "Allison," he said, looking like he was acting surprised. "Who am I?" she asked. "What? Who am I?" she yelled. Stone reached for his telephone, but Allison squeezed the trigger of the gun and the phone disintegrated. "Wow," she said. "So that's what that feels like. Don't make me repeat myself." You lost your memory," he said. Bullshit. I didn't take your precious pills this morning or last night. My memory's nearly fresh and clean. I've seen the tapes you've been making on the discs in the little room next to my apartment, so don't fucking lie to me." She tossed the note she found at the park on his desk. "How do you explain this, huh?" She allowed him to read it over for a few seconds, but not long. "Huh?" she screamed. "Is it true that you're intentionally poisoning me, making me lose my memory?" "Allison, explain the TV screen in my bedroom, the one with the brick wall behind it, and the one like it in my living room, or the cameras, watching and recording my every move." "The what?" She fired another round, hitting the cushion of his chair, narrowly missing his shoulder. "Don't play dumb with me. There was a TV screen in my bedroom, making me think the world outside was real, when it really was just to make me think the same day was repeating over and over again, wasn't it? Like a rerun on TV. Is that it?" He hesitated. So she kept going on with her tirade. "The pills. They're like the note says. I'm right, aren't I? You're using them to erase..." She choked on her emotions for a second. Tears rolled down her pale cheeks. "My memories?" "Allison, please," Stone said. He stood and tried to step around his desk, but she parried, making him remember who was in control of the situation. "I never lost my memories, did I? You stole them from me. You erased my life." "Allison, I'm not Dr. Stone." "The hell you're not. Listen to me, for God's sake." He sighed heavily. "Patrick Stone has been dead for 2 years, ever since we began your erasure." Allison never relaxed her aim on him. It surprised her how angry and powerful she felt. "Go on." "I was desperate for money. I developed the pills you're taking to help people, so they could forget pain, depression, suffering, regret. Stone knew they were side effects. You and your partner found out about it, and I couldn't have that. There was indeed an accident, and you have the scar on your forehead to show for it. So rather than kill you, I played it off like you had amnesia, and gave you the pills I'd developed to erase your day-to-day memories. Then I posed as your doctor to make sure the erasure took, and that was constant and consistent. I soon realized the pills worked too well. They were worth billions to the right buyers, mostly from other countries. I needed you to prove the pills actually worked. That's why I made the video recordings, to prove you didn't know one day from the next." "And Jimmy, the guy from the coffee shop?" "A student at the university. He was studying memory loss. He asked to research my work, to be my protege, but I said no. Then he ran into you. So you killed him." Without lowering her weapon, she fiddled with the journal she was holding and opened it. She held it up for him to see. "And this boy, the one I've been drawing all these months, who is he?" Stone smiled. "Please, let me show you something." At gunpoint, he led her out of his office and down the hall to a series of other hallways that did not look anything like a psychiatric's office at all. The new place was cold and resembled a jail, if anything. Allison felt an uneasiness in her belly. Stone led her to a white-walled room. It was rather small, but had a rectangular table inside, with several chairs. There was a large window in the far wall. Beyond the window was a well-lit playroom of some sort. Allison could see that the other room was huge, and had just about everything a child could ever want or need. A young boy with red hair and freckles was sitting on the floor, playing with a tiny, snap-together building block. He looked to be about 6 or 7 years old. "Oh my God," Allison whispered. "He's your son, Allison. Yours and Michael Stone's." That got her attention. "Michael," she said, tearing her eyes away from the kid in the room. "He's Patrick's brother, your husband, Allison." She turned and stared in pure awe at the boy in the room. Tears flooded her eyes as she watched him. He was so adorable and precious and beautiful. She laughed as she cried, from the joy of closure she felt. She could tell just by looking at the boy that he was her child. The boy in her portraits, he was real now. She couldn't help but smile. But then she remembered why she was there, and that the man beside her was the only key to her past. She pointed her gun at him. "Let him out." "Allison, I don't have—" "Let him out." The force of her voice made him jump. She stepped closer to him and put the gun against his head. "Do it, or so help me God, I will kill you." Suddenly the door opened, and the observation room was flooded with police officers and detectives. The man posing as Dr. Stone let out a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness you're here. This woman is obviously insane. Arrest her at once." Michael Stone walked in. He raised his hand, holding something small, slender and black. It was a digital sound recorder. He pressed a button. "So I killed him," the Stone imposter said through the tiny speaker for all to hear. "But not before he told you about the problems with the pills." "Me? Why? You were his partner. You were the only ones beside me who knew about the side effects. Your deaths were supposed to look like an accident." Allison's doctor was speechless as he was led away from the room. Michael gently took the gun from his wife. She let him. "Are you all right?" he asked. She didn't say a word, just threw herself into his arms, crying in his embrace. A moment later, one of the officers said, "Ma'am, sir." Allison looked up and saw that the door to the playroom was open. She looked at Michael. "You first," he said. "You deserve it." She smiled, kissed him, then disappeared through the door to the playroom. Once inside, the little boy dropped what he was doing and ran to her. "Mommy, Mommy!" He tossed himself against her body and kissed her belly, hugging her tightly. Epilogue. Allison awakened. The covers were tangled around her body as usual. Outside, pigeons took flight. The room was quiet, peaceful. She began to wonder if the past few days had just been a dream. Her bedroom door opened, and a little boy with red hair ran in and leaped up onto her. "Good morning, Mommy," he whispered. She petted his hair, touched his cheek, and smiled. "Hi, baby boy." "Shh," he said, putting his thin finger to his lips. "You'll wake up Daddy." Allison looked beside her on the bed. Lying there with Tomorrow in his arms, Michael was there, sleeping soundly. "Oh my God," she thought. Tomorrow stood, stretched, and walked over to Allison's side of the bed. Her son petted his back and tail. "Mommy?" he asked. "Yes, honey. Can we go to the zoo today?" "Yes, baby, whatever you want." "And can we go see a movie tomorrow?" At the sound of his name, the big feline meowed. Allison paused for a moment, thinking. "Tomorrow?" "Yes, honey," she finally said. "I think we can."